Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bots Billables. And today I am joined by Ulf Zetterberg. So, Ulf, thank you very much for joining.
Quick Thank you, Michael. Pleasure.
Introduction. For those of you, most of you probably know Ulf. Ulf is the founder and CEO of SEO Software that got acquired by DocuSign in, was it 2020?
Yep.
So you built this company and then scaled it and sold it in a time when AI was still machine learning. You are from Sweden. You are not coming from the legal market. You have an IT background, if I'm not mistaken. You're a technical person, but also you're
no technical business mixed.
Here we go.
Jack of all trades.
Here we go. So you're
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, and what I like most about our conversations is that you are not looking into the world from the eyes of a lawyer, but you're solving legal problems. At least some of the problems you solve are also legal problems. But I want to start a conversation with, first of all, your view on the market at the moment. So you did AI successfully, and you built one of the most known companies in that space for document review when AI was still machine learning. So how has it changed now, Ulf?
Well, we don't get the question if it's a magic dust. 2010, most of the conversation with customers started like, does this work? Is this magic? How can you pull out data out of a contract, etc.? Lots of things have changed. 2010, when we started and was really the founders of contract analytics, it was basic machine learning and NLP. And fast forward, the world is very different. In some ways, but not in other ways. I don't think that the evolution of tech has gone that far yet. AI is amazing, and what you can do and what we will be able to do is going to be great. But I think there's, as always, the technology industry has a chance to get ahead of everyone else, and particularly the customers. So I see a little bit of a catch-up game right now. The customers are clearly excited, see the potential, and there are some great use cases out there. But I also think there are lots of trial and errors and uncertainty, also like how it will affect the business. And some functions are moving faster than others, etc. And I think the interesting thing is it's always been this kind of a holy trinity: technology, change, technology process, and technology and people goes hand in hand. And when they are not aligned, then things tend to go slower or project failed. And I think we're living in that right now.
When there's I want to say almost a data cluster emerging from my conversations with people, even in this podcast, where my impression is that the longer people have watched the legal industry and the more hypes they've seen, ironically, the more they're inclined to believe that now is the time. It's almost like the more you would think that somebody would react a little bit relaxed and be more chilled, the more extreme they think the impact of the current AI wave will be. And you're one of the people who is not, you're the odd one out in this data. You're more relaxed to this. Is this correct?
Not relaxed, but I would say, I think it's it is very powerful, and there's no doubt that AI is having already major changes and transformative changes on what we do. But things take time. I think we like to take shortcuts, right? We're quite lazy as human beings. We don't like to admit that we are. The way I see it, to kind of keep it very simple, pragmatic, AI is not psychic. Meaning, if you don't understand the underlying problem, meaning the root cause that we're trying to solve, right? AI can't fix it. AI is extremely powerful, but it requires you to understand what you're trying to do, and so you can predict the outcome. You can't it's not a black box you throw at it and it's going to magically fix something. And I think that's what many companies are running into. And I also think you have a departmental view of legal or procurement running away and going to solve the big problem on their own. Most transformations that are very successful is cross-functional, right? Is literally changing a business. So it needs the participation, not just from kind of one department or one function, but from the overall organization. And now we come into the hardest thing, which is change management. People don't like to change. So you gotta force people to change. We're gonna motivate people to change. And I think that many of the projects, what I'm seeing and when I'm talking to customers, it's the big struggle, right? To get that like big kind of cluster of people moving the same pace and towards the same goal.
What does that mean for the predictions of the impact of the technology for the markets? Do you think the wave and the revenue numbers and all the adoption metrics we're looking at are extreme and sort of off the charts because we are using the technology in a sort of level one way where time to value is essentially zero. It's very limited because you just like log in, ask a question, get an answer. Like it's fairly straightforward. Also, we are surfing the wave of the ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic marketing, where we are getting taught how to use the stuff. So there's not a lot of change necessary. Cultural change virtually zero because it's productivity for me. It's my efficiency is not revolving anyone in the team. So there's no organizational like personal change. And then also there's almost no process yet. Like we're not talking about the change of workflows yet. Is this why you say next wave of use cases, this is where it's getting complicated? This is like if you really bring it to play and you really want to get the value, this is going to be harder.
Well, yes and no. I think you're right. I think that the first ROI is personal and instant. Like it's what you can do for you. All the assistance is really empower the individual to be more effective, to quick get an answer, to quick get stuff done, which is important. When you start to put multiple peoples together, that's how we collaborate and work and get something done inside an organization. It's a workflow. It's a collaboration. So now you got to start to move at the same pace, right? You got to agree on the problem statement. Right? Is the problem statement like an overarching business process across the company, or is this functionally driven? It could be both, right? So what is the priority? What are we trying to fix? I think it's more complex than people would like to admit, because it's like most companies have like years of trading, right? That they are stuck in certain things that can be easy to fix. Other system changes, it could be almost like an open heart surgery, right? It's going to be lots of nervous people to kind of poke in at certain systems or certain workflows until they really, really feel that this is going to work, right? So I think we're in that phase that we are testing. We're seeing some kind of a great impact in productivity. But I don't think we have seen those kind of great transformative use cases that stick in. There are lots of individual great stories, but I still think they're like quite individual. It's not like you can say, hey, that's going to scale and whole industry is changing. Like some industries are changing more than others, of course, but I don't think we see that like big aha yet. But then you can try to predict like, are we 1 year away, 3 years away? I'm not concerned about that. I mean, change is coming, right? I think it's just in early phases of what you can do with this technology.
Are you looking at something specific? Are you having your let's say data sets or sectors or groups of use cases you're watching for yourself so you can see how far we are and whether change is already underway?
Well, yes and no. I mean, in our case, we focus on primarily fixing the contract performance problem. Like, forget about the legal guardrails. Contract analytics is there. It's like Me Too. Everybody has that. It's like, and we review contract 40% faster. It's really good. But that's only valuable if the CFO can get overhead accounts, right? Because we work a little bit faster. It's good. We feel better. But what's the real P&L balance sheet impact? I think there are some of the use cases we're looking at is like require customers and business to understand how they make money, why they make money, right? It's like what's our core asset like? What's make us unique? What is our competitiveness? And then making sure that you can kind of attract that and more better than ever, like kind of capture that on an ongoing basis. So I think a part of we need to do a better job is kind of a knowledge management in a way, kind of truly understand what makes a business tick. Tribal knowledge is still a big problem, right? There are lots of knowledge inside many companies in workflows that sits in people's heads. It's not documented. It's not kind of shared. You have, say, 10 people in the same department, don't really work the same way. They're very different numbers in productivity efficiency. So I think you got to fix some of that. Like, and I think there's an underlying data problem still, like to understand it. Like we don't need more data. I think that most companies have enough data. It's just like, well, you got to see where's the golden nugget. Like, I mean, you don't need another dashboard. You don't need another view of the information. Like, you rather need how can you actually consolidate and sort through the noise, right? I mean, you look at. I think that in many companies struggling with over-engineer contracts, the complexity is because people negotiate and kind of write the business is very creative, right? The stuff they want to do. But the back end can't track it. The back end, the rest of the business is just not set up to deal with that, right? So you create more of a problem there. Like you kind of create more data in one way that is harder to track. And maybe it's not clear for everybody that why we're tracking that data or why we need that data in the first place. So I think we still have a data problem, and I think like you're going to surface information. You want to have the right information, right person, in the right time. This is a classic, right? So I don't think that for many businesses, not more data is the solution. It's actually less data, and it's by knowing with conviction what data we need to run our business effectively.
It sounds like you want to insinuate like to something, that you want to lead to something, because you could argue CLMs were there, but they didn't solve the problem, at least not to the extent that lawyers are happy with it. And also maybe not to the extent that the business are happy with it. You could argue that CLMs are sort of productized workflows. They're productized commercial solutions to a workflow, but they didn't really solve it. What are lawyers not getting right in that? I think half the people listening to this are probably in a corporate, and what do you tell them?
Well, I'm going to be careful now, so I don't offend somebody right now. But no. But I think I listen. Supporting functions in most companies, and the first let's kind of put it in a way. Legal and procurement, I see lots of similarities with. Like, there are supporting functions. Nobody wants to see themselves as a supporting function because you want to have a seat at the table. You want to be like, hey, we are part of driving business value, etc. And they do in many cases, right? But I think like that CLMs in many cases get hijacked by legal. And it's easy to understand because it's a risk-driven initially, right? Make sure nothing bad happens, like keep yourself out of harm's way, etc. But that's not necessarily with the rest of the business looking at a contract, right? The missing piece for the contract is like, that's the why. Okay, why are we buying this service? Why are we buying this component in the first place? Then you put the legal guardrails around it, right? But I don't think like legal and procurement sometimes can hijack a contract, maybe the best way to see, and the kind of a take over, and then the kind of the idea about like the why get lost, right? Why in the first place? Why do we need this service? Why do we need this product? And I think that when that get lost and you start to add lots of other things, and that could be, hey, listen, there's some industries fighting hard with regulatory environments that are very tough, right? It is what it is. But I think it's that understanding of like what's the purpose? What's like, keep it simple, the why. Like, why are we procuring this service? Is if we fully understand that, like, and capture that and keep that essence alive in the contract, it doesn't get lost, and it will simplify things. And I think I have a tendency that like that CLMs in many cases kind of start to live their own life. I mean, I had a conversation last week with the CFO, right? Which like they're spending a fairly large amount on the CLM system, but they still have rogue contracts, right? So the frustration is there. We're now in our third year of the journey of the CLM system, right? But we tend to have surprises on an annual basis. So that kind of put pressure on it, right? So like, why doesn't all the contract find its way into the CLM? In most cases, kind of discipline, poor processes, right? So, but it's kind of in that case, they're probably going to struggle with the renewal, that vendor with that contract, because when the CFO is unhappy, it's not the person you want to have unhappy when it comes to renewal times, right? But you can't really blame the CLM software for it, right? It's to kind of set up an environment, and there are other things, but I don't know if that's kind of relevant. But and it's not just CLM. There are many applications. Like you can always say that, like the SaaS world didn't fix the silos. Like they actually created more silos. I think we were hoping for, like, when a big SaaS revolution is going to simplify things, and it did in many cases. But it also created silos, right? You have very, very strong system on the CRM side. You have the financial systems, you have P2P system, etc. Like, and how well connected are they? And I think that's the problem for many companies, right? There's not a seamless flow across these silos, and then we're trying to patch up that and fix it by bolting on applications. In some cases, like I think CLM is a good example, right? It's kind of get bolted on to fix something, but the underlying cause is probably something harder. You're not just going to get fixed by a CLM system.
I don't know who said it. I think it was Charlie Songhurst, if I remember this correctly, who said, or who reminded me of thinking of SaaS and software not as like a functional unit, but more of how he phrased it, arms in the warfare of corporate departments. And what he meant by this is that every department sort of defend their claim and make their work better by of course, like, winning over the other department. So you have a career building interest. You have a very, very self-focused interest in buying specific tools, because that makes you progress, and which is actually very close to the notion of having an internal champion in an organization, because these champions ideally are interest aligned with the solution you're bringing, because their most important part in the job is aligned to how your solution works. I think the kind of the structure of the politics in a company and how an organization works functionally and politically has found its sort of mirroring or replication in the SaaS landscape a little bit, because people equipped with arms are using it like this. Do you think AI has an impact on that, or can we is there an AI first remodeling of this, or will we do the opposite to break down silos by bringing the tech into workflows to have tools talk to each other, break down silos, and have more, not depend on too many front ends to actually things to talk to each other and work?
I think it's going to be both. I think it's going to be both. I mean, I think, like, we're interested to see how AI deal with change. I think, like, you make a good point. The internal champion becomes also like usually you implement in your application initially, you solve the problem. So the first experience for everybody internally, there was a big hole somewhere and it's fixed. Now, fast forward 3, 4, 5 years on, the business changed, the world has changed, the environment internally have changed, right? But how quickly have that application changed to keep up with the new demands, right? There's been always a struggle, right? You get into dealing with lots of kind of stuff. You have to deal with legacy implementation, and at the same time, you're going to be innovative. And it's not hard. And like seen this in multiple phases the last 25 years, right? Software development and software deployment is not easy when you're living in fast changing environments, right? And that creates the politics, because that internal champion, right, is fighting for his career move or her career move, like, because they implemented a system and made them look good, and then after a while it starts to be very much like, well, we can't do that because the system doesn't allow it, right? And people want to change the system, and then they buy another system, and you have another application coming, etc. I think AI is going to help with some of that part, but I also think, once again, I think there's some underlying challenges you need to understand, particularly if you deal with businesses and industries that have like 50, 60, 70 years history. Some have even further, and that history matters, right? Because it's a part of not just how that company, but how certain things get done. So in that case, now you're going to see, it could be a big thing like, are you going to see in our lifetime, I mean, like, is this like 10, 20 years from now, when you have industries completely transform how to do things. So all the things that we took as the truth, we can't change that. And we all say that you can't change that; it's impossible, right? But truly changing something, like you see, fintech has been around for a while now in financial services. It has an impact. And I'm not the right person to say, but can you say that truly have changed the financial industry as an industry totally? It has an impact. It's moved the needle, no doubt, but how much? Is kind of traditional banking changed big time for that? Yeah, there may be new customer groups that want to interact differently, etc. So I think that kind of a fundamental, like real transformative change takes longer. Because it largely, and it's us as customers and people as users tend to move slowest, right? Before we kind of get used to it. So it's easier to start a new business because there's nothing you have to care about, right? But most of our businesses that makes our kind of put our lunch on the table and dinner on the table, right, or been around for a long time. So it'd be interesting to see how society as a whole deal with some parts will move very fast, probably and change, and other parts will go slower, like we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years and you see big changes.
Yes. So far, we only have Lime scooters. But no, like I mean it. You say something very interesting. You say the culture and people involved in the processes, procedural changes in how organizations move will take longer and is basically moving at glacier speed. So the change will eventually come, but it will take over time and like it will take longer. And this means that the implications will not be that fast that it will overturn things in a completely disruptive way. Is that a safe summary? Assuming that, it's the fast change that kills. It's not the slow change that kills. It's the thing that happens like within a year that puts companies out of business because they can't adapt. But if you assume that...
Well, I mean, I think both. I mean, if you move too fast, sometimes it can kill you because you get it wrong completely. Like there's no trial and error. You go all in and it was not the right move. That has nothing to do with AI. They can do any change. Sometimes can have an extreme negative impact, right? And of course, if you don't move fast enough, you're among the slowest, you're going to get penalized for that too. So I don't think it's easy to say moving too fast or moving too slow. But listen, fear is a big thing here, right? And it's human beings. I think there are lots of people inside large organizations that are fear for their job in the future, right? They're sitting there looking right now, okay, how many more years do I need to work until my 401k kicks in so I can retire, right? And there will be, I don't think they have this, maybe like this kind of conversation they had, but subconsciously it's like, are you holding on to the share because you're more fear of the change because you don't understand some of it? And I think organizations that navigate that and understand that there is a fear among the people that going to have to be part of the change is going to be very successful. The ones that just run the technology gauntlet and listen to us from the industry say things can be fantastic with more AI, you're probably going to have some really bad experience in project failing and people not prepared, because I still think that you need, in most cases, you're going to need people be buying into the change and be part of the change. There are jobs that are going to disappear. We know that, right? But I think majority of jobs is just going to get massively enhanced by AI. And so you need people to be a part of that. So if the organization can navigate that and kind of managing the fear factor, so to speak, for the employees, we probably be very successful on scale quicker than the ones that just try to force the change.
You were building a business in a time when I think FOMO didn't help you a lot. Fear didn't help you a lot. Like there was not a gold rush going on to that extent that people would like, you couldn't manage the leads coming in, right? You had to hustle. You had to go to market in a very organized and thought through motion. There was probably some interest in the early days of SEAL where people say like you do AI on contracts, but you still had to work hard to especially prove value to this. What is your advice to people doing this now? Like having now, like after the big interest now, having to actually go to use cases, improve value, and actually have the old ROI spiel where you actually have to start with the problem first. What's your advice to those founders and people now in the arena, and also in the corporates and the law firms that have the tech now, and have access to tech, but now have to, find ways to apply it, find the use cases? What's your advice to them?
Well, I think that's where it comes to demystify the AI thing. Like it's just if you apply it around the real use case and the real problem, and you can show like before and after, so people can feel confidence about the change. It's not like a black box you throw in somewhere; it's going to magically fix something. You get people to work with you. And I think the other thing about the ROI, I mean, like there's everybody talks about outcome-based pricing, right? But you're going to have to see that. I think many companies are going to start to see like, why should I pay $500,000 for a CLM system per year? Because I have certain efficiencies. Like, what is the real impact on my P&L balance sheet? I'm just picking a CLM here now because we brought it up. It could be a CRM system, right? So I think many of these applications, systems is going to be tested by like, it's not the fixed renewal anymore. It's not the fixed price per year anymore. Like it is truly outcome driven, right? And now time to value becomes more interesting. So why would it take 3 months to implement a system? Like we still have some CLM vendors kind of setting up because of all the forms and stuff like that. It's like that's just nuts, right? That's not the perception of what AI could bring. So I think like demystify it. Hey, people wake up Monday morning and fixing problems. That hasn't changed. People go to work, right? And they don't wake up and feel like I'm going to go buy some AI and I'm going to fix my problem. Like it's not that
Actually, they do. No, they do.
okay, maybe legal then. You're lucky. I think the majority of people kind of are still more pragmatic, and I think that's where if you can kind of attach to that, you will scale and build something faster, because that's the end of the day is going to pay the bills. It's like you have a tangible impact on a company, department, or an individual's like problem and fixing it. But the interesting thing about to see what's going to happen with outcome-based pricing, everybody talks about it, but I think there's a lot of hype. It'd be interested to see. I mean, we live by it at Data Mirror. We pushing. This is like performance driven, right? If you can't measure it hard, then what's the value, right? And if it doesn't have an impact in your P&L and balance sheet, then why do it in the first place?
Yeah. I have a question for you, Ulf, because this is maybe the number you know best. What is, you think, the percentage number of contracts that are being reviewed by AI today?
I think a large part being reviewed by AI with a human interaction to it. The question is like how large percentages are reviewed by AI only, meaning like that's it, right? I mean, to me, it's like you still have we have discussed NDAs for 100 years. That was like the low hanging fruit 15 years ago, right? But you still see company launching that with like in the first use cases NDA reviews. So then you go like, well, if you still changing the NDA reviews, how many contracts then get reviewed only by AI? And that's like, so it's a black box. There's no human intervention whatsoever. Hard to tell. I think there
single digits, double digits.
There's so many contracts we create on a daily basis, and I'm like,
of all humanity, you're one.
I think we're double digits. I think we're double digits because I think there's some standard contract and process that you can do it and you trust it, right? You buy a cell phone and you buy lots of stuff like that, depending on if you think about all contract, right? But if you talk about negotiated contracts where you actually have a change, if you buy a phone, you don't have a change. You change the terms. You sign, you don't sign.
Yeah.
Negotiated contracts, I think we are fully reviewed by AI only, single digits.
Yeah.
Single digits.
I think I agree, but I think it's very interesting how you see the world with like differentiating between the contract types and go like T&C style that were already like very, very, very different levels of tech proliferation.
Yeah.
So for all the founders who are currently launching companies to do NDA review, do you think that market's still there?
It must be. get funding. So somebody believe in it. They're smarter than I am. I'm not one of the guys that have that kind of a insight, but
Yeah.
it must be. It must be.
What's the
People get
NDA
funny.
in procurement?
Sorry?
What's the NDA in procurement? Do you have a similar like low risk, high frequency, completely irrelevant like document type that is constantly being used in procurement?
Well, I think that one problem has to get fixed that it's tailspend, but it's like tailspend is like completely like all the indirect procurement. That should be highly standardized and fixed, right? That should be that's kind of still it's interesting that it's such a big problem. So I think that's something that intrigues us to be part of fixing that, because I think there's also standard there that you should be able to get set up. And a part of that is going back to what we said. I think that you can have that integrated inside the procurement. Well, put it like this. Inside the procurement department, they think they have it covered. But then it's going to get tied off to the ERP system and to the finance team, etc. And that becomes into a cross-functional workflow, and challenges comes up.
Like it. Ulf, thank you very much for sharing this. I think this was very insightful and also very sobering for some people. Very, very helpful in looking into the world of contract review and document review at large. Thank you very much for joining us. And bye-bye until next time.
Bye-bye. Thanks. Cheers, Michael. Thanks.